incentivization scheme. What is that? Suppose you have grown in exports, earned foreign exchange, then you need to be given extra money for that, over and above. Chapter 4, Chapter 5, Chapter 3, this is one benefit which is over and above. There is a cap that we cannot give you in a quarter, 20 lakh rupees in a year, 1 crore. More than that you cannot get. The cap is there of 1 crore in a year or 20 lakhs in a quarter. But what is the precondition for that? That your exports must grow. There should not be a negative growth in the previous quarter. And whatever is the growth percentage, you will get 2%. So that's known as incremental incentivization scheme. Let me recap. That's all import-export policy. Let me recap this to you. I have told you that there is a status house where you are export house, star export house, trading house, premier trading house, star trading house. These all are the categories. In this category, suppose he comes, he says, sir, this is unfair. You know that happens. Somebody who is very big, he will continue to grow big. Somebody who is small or in the small sector like handlooms, handicraft, he will never become big, which is labor intensive because they cannot have turnover. That's the point. So most of the labor intensive sector like handlooms, handicraft, we have given double weightage. That if you earn 10 crores, I'll give you 20 crores incentive. If you go into the handlooms, handicraft or labor intensive sector, which there is a list, will give you double the benefit. Or if you acquire ISO, will give you double the benefit. But you are doing good governance. Alright? Panda clear hai? That's chapter. I have told you chapter 3, post-exports incentive. I have told you chapter 4, which is duty-free imports of raw material. I have told you chapter 5, which is EPCG. That is capital goods import. Now rest is SEZ, EOU, EPZ. Now suppose you come to me, you said, sir, I don't want to get into all this problem of taking an advanced license for a scrip under chapter 4, then import it. I just want to import and export and give me whatever is the duty which is. I'll tell you, go to the customs. What will customs do? Customs says they have all India brand rate, all industry brand rate. They will say, this is the item, this is the brand rate, this is the money they will deposit in your account, which is known as duty drawback. Either you go to the customs or you come to the DGFT. DGFT schemes are much more remunerative, but you have to go through little procedure. Customs, you import, export, get the money straight into your account. That's the entire process. Thank you very much. I have not gone through presentation, you will get it in your, and this detailed presentation will be there available with you. I did not want to go in a very detailed one. I wanted a basic funda to be clear. Otherwise, on each chapter there can be a whole day lecture. I have tried to touch upon what is the imports-exports policy, what is the basis, what are the incentives, and how you should avail of it. In this, I have also made the chart that what are the documents which are required, what is the policy provision which is invoked there, everything is available here. You can see that later on. Alright? Thank you.
I now request the students to put forward their questions to the panel.
अगर आप लोग क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछेंगे तो हमें लगेगा कि या तो हमारी बात समझ में नहीं आई है या आपको इंटरेस्ट नहीं है. कुछ क्वेश्चन तो पूछ रही
बोलिए. So what steps are taken as during export there are a lot of intermediaries which take major profits. So what steps does DGFT or the foreign trade policies are there to remove this intermediary and give direct benefits to the producers?
I didn't follow.
I'll tell you. See, there are two kinds of exporters. What we call it, one is the manufacturer exporter, and second what we call is the merchant exporter. Now merchant exporter is one who basically takes goods from the manufacturer and then exports it. The manufacturer exporter is the one who has the manufacturing capacity and they directly have an engine and they export it. Sir, we do not distinguish between them. And the intermediaries, for example, there is somebody who gives the order to them. Then we have a circular by which we are clear that not more than 5% you can give to somebody who gives you the export order. More than that, it's not permissible for export incentive. So we do not distinguish between a merchant exporter and a manufacturer exporter. The reason being because both of them play a very important role, both merchant and manufacturer. And both of them, if you see in the whole, what we try to do is that wherever, for example, you require that it has to be through the manufacturer, then we try to see that they have a linkage with the manufacturer. But as a student of international marketing, I must say, manufacturing activity is as important as the marketing activity. And as I have shown you, the international trade is twice more than the output. So we cannot discourage between one who is basically doing a merchandising, who is a merchant exporter, and another one who is a manufacturer exporter. Though we have put a cap in terms of the number, the commission which one can receive through that transaction, maximum to 5%. 12.5%. I stand corrected. It's 12.5% commission.
And if I may just add to it, if I understood you correctly, intermediaries are the so-called chartered accountants or consultants or commission agents who act between the exporter and the DGFT. Now, we have been always trying very hard to encourage exporters to come to us directly. We know there is a little level of documentation, transaction cost, transaction time, but then we are trying our level best to simplify the processes, reduce the human interface, and an ultimate paradigm dream is to, make it directly, through EDI, electronic data interface. You send us the application online, like IEC, Importer-Exporter Code, which is the first thing. In our zonal meeting also recently it was discussed. Just when you apply for a UK or a US visa, you fill it online. Then you download it and just sign the first and second page. You go to BHF, which is for the American visa or the British visa, isn't it? Everything is sent online already. So we are moving towards that paradigm, that even though you have to apply online and you also have the option to come physically. Our experience is that we issue about 100 IECs every day through my main flagship office here. Out of 100, 10 are coming to us online and 90 come physically to us. But we would like to reduce the footfalls of the exporters. Those who want to take IEC, apply online directly. Maybe if you have to come initially, like when you go for your visa, just sign the first and the last page and come. Okay?
Hello. Sir, cluster in China are more effective when we compare with the Indian counterparts. So what could be our efforts to make it more effective? See, the GDP of cluster in China is around 20% of their total GDP. And when you compare with the Indian counterparts, the total manufacturing GDP is just about 17 to 18%.
Yeah, as students of economics, you know which are the 4 factors of production. Tell me.
Price, policy, place.
No, that is marketing. 4 P's: product, price, promotion, place. Land, labor, capital, enterprise. And which are the 5 M's of manufacturing or 5 M's of production? This is from the economist point of view. Yeah, men, money, machines, materials, and market, isn't it? Now, if you think like an economist and you compare India and China, land. Now, land, unfortunately, though we are a land surplus country, suddenly land has become scarce. Today, if you ask any exporter, he says that I cannot set up my unit in Noida, Greater Noida, Gurgaon. The price of land has become prohibitively expensive. And as a government officer, for us also, with this latest Land Acquisition Act, acquiring land also has become very tedious and cumbersome. And then you pay a huge amount to the farmers. We are in Noida today, Greater Noida today. And so many times we have been reading that the district magistrate had to incur the wrath of the farmers. So land has to be corrected. The pricing of land has to be corrected if we have to become competitive. Number 1. Number 2 is the labor. Now, our wage rates, of course, we're not grudging that the workers should get higher wages, but they should also be more productive, more efficient. Our efficiency levels are low. Our wage rates have become high, thanks to Manrega. Now, people have got used to staying in their own villages, doing, as I say in disguise, unemployment, work for 2-3 hours, 1 hour, and get your 100 rupees and 50 rupees minimum wage. So that has distorted the labor market. This distortion has to be corrected. So what we are doing is that we are talking to various export promotion councils like Apparel. Apparel is very labor intensive. So we are talking to the Apparel guys and saying that, okay, we need to push up our Apparel exports, as Tanu has brought out, this great scope in Apparel exports. So government gives 100 rupees to the Apparel exporter, he gives 100 rupees from his own pocket. So 200 rupees, it's also kind of some kind of a subsidy. Plus he helps to train the workers. So that skill endowment is also there. So that's the model we are looking at. Third factor of production is capital. The cost of capital in India is certainly very high as compared to China. In China, because of all kinds of disguised subsidies and keeping the exchange rate artificially low, they have been able to gain a competitive advantage vis-a-vis us. And the last but not the least is enterprise. So the animal spirits of our entrepreneurs, have to be rekindled. Unfortunately, in the last government, there were all kinds of problems and hassles and scams, and there was a kind of policy paralysis also. So now with the new government, there's a lot of hype, a lot of hope, a lot of expectations, and we need to, extricate the entrepreneurs from the pessimism, from that sheer despondency, and kick in the virtuous entrepreneurial cycle. We hope that with the new dispensation, we would be able to move vigorously on all the 4 factors of production and become closer to China. And of course, my thinking is a little different. Of course, in international trade, we always have free trade, but free trade is not always fair trade. So I still believe, so Ameya says that if you integrate more and more, if you have more trade, your exports grow up. But if you look at the development story of India in the beginning, which I gave example, Nehruvian socialism, it's also the infant industry argument. Today, if you look at our defense imports, after I think crude oil, the number 2 imports are defense. We need to go in for efficient import substitution, and kick in the manufacturing cycle. There's a lot of debate going on now, and I think something concrete should emerge. Would you like to add something, Amit?
Just one or two seconds, sir. In China, most of the enterprise is run by the public sector, where it's still, they say, the commanding heights. In India, they prove to be demanding depth. You keep on putting and then they go into the pit. So when it's being driven by the public sector, then the government has greater control and vision to move them to a different direction. Now, for example, most of the sector which are not very beneficial are the one where the private sector will never come. My sir's point is absolutely correct. In fact, I completely agree in those sectors like defense and others where private sector is not going to come. You need to have effective import substitution and build your own strength. I was just talking about those sectors where there is a competitive spirit and where the private enterprise can play a bigger role. The private enterprise will play a bigger role.